Good evening, everyone. This week's parsha is Parsha Vaera, Tavshin Pei Aleph. And I'd like to dedicate tonight's Drasha in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamis Rabinowitz, Shalamis Bas Yaakov Eliezer. There is a saying that goes, there are no atheists in a foxhole. When the going gets rough, there's nowhere to go, you go to God. The question is, when someone gets out of the foxhole, what happens then? And typically we find that, I should say typically, but often we find that after we get out of the foxhole and things go back to normal, we forget about Hashem. When we're in trouble, we turn to Him. After that, go back to normal, go back to the way things were before. And before, perhaps we weren't turning to Hashem, and that's what we go back to. Even though we were in trouble, we did turn to Him. We find an example of this in this week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, by the plague of the Tzfardeya, of the frogs, the Torah tells us that Paro begged Moshe to daven to Hashem that the frog should go away. What happens, the Torah says, Vayar Paro ki haisa haravacha. Paro saw that there was relief. He became stubborn, and he didn't listen to them. Pasuk tells us straight out, once he saw haravacha, once he saw relief, hardened his heart back to the way he was before. It's not just Paro, people do that all the time. What is the understanding behind this? Why is it that only in a time of distress we'll turn to Hashem, but when things go back, we can forget about Him? And the answer is because we look at life as life is supposed to be the way we want it. Life is supposed to be the way we expect it. Only when life isn't the way we expect it, that's when things are different. That's when we turn to Hashem. But when things are going good, or when things even go back to going good, this is the way it's supposed to be. It's a given. We take it for granted. And therefore, even if until right before we were begging Hashem for mercy, once things go back to the way they were supposed to be, the way we expect them to be, the way we feel should be or we deserve, then we forget. So the question is, what is it? What can we do about this? How do we work on not taking things for granted and looking at life in a way that when it works out for us, of course, that's the way it's supposed to be. And only when we're in a time of distress, that's when we turn to Hashem. So I'm going to share with you a story. I've said this story over many times before, but clearly it's my favorite story. And I'll read it to you from Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky's book, Parashat Parables. So the story goes of a wealthy merchant from Warsaw who do business each month in the Krakow market in Poland. On each visit, he noticed an extremely pious widow huddled near her basket of bread, reciting Tehillim, reciting Psalms. She only lifted her eyes from her worn prayer book to sell a roll. After each sale, she would then shower her customer with a myriad of blessings and immediately return to the frayed pages which were moistened with teardrops and devotion. Upon observing her each month, the Krakow businessman came to a conclusion. He was actually a Warsaw businessman, came to a conclusion. This pious woman should not have to struggle to earn a living. She should be able to pursue her prayers and piety with no worries. He then offered to double her monthly earnings on one condition. She would leave the bread business and spend her time in the service of Hashem. Streaming down her face, accepted the generous offer and thanked the kind man with praise, gratitude, and blessing. A month later, when the man returned to Krakow, he was shocked to find the woman at her usual place, mixing the sweet smells of rolls with the sweet words of Tehillim. As soon as he approached, the woman handed him an envelope. "Here is your money," she said simply. "I thought it over and I can't accept your offer." "A deal is a deal," the man exclaimed. We must go see the Rav, Rabbi Nosson Shapira. After the businessman presented his case, the woman spoke. The reason this generous man offered to support me was to help me grow in spirituality and devotion, she explained. From the day I left my bread business, I've only fallen. Let me explain. Every day that it would rain, I would think of the farmers who planted the wheat for my bread and rolls. I would sing praises for the glory of rain as I felt the personal guidance of Hashem with each raindrop. When the sun would shine, I would once again thank Hashem for permitting the farmers to harvest in good weather. When I ground the flour and then sifted it, I'd find countless reasons to thank the Almighty. When the bread baked golden brown, I'd thank Hashem for the beauty of the product and its sweet smell. And when a customer would come, I thank both Hashem for sending him and then bless my patron too. Now, she said, this is all gone, and I want no part of a simple, all expenses paid life. So here's an example of a person who saw the guiding hand of Hashem, the blessings of Hashem in everything that she did, in everything that was involved in her life, whether it was the rain that caused the wheat to grow, the sun that allowed the harvesters to harvest, the farmers to harvest in peace, whether it was how well the bread baked and how well it smelled, and of course the customer who came to purchase her rolls. She saw this all as Hashem's guiding hand, of Hashem's kindness. And she was constantly praising and thanking Hashem for everything that came in her life. We are supposed to do this every day when we daven, and every day when we make brachas, when we make blessings. This is where we are constantly reminding ourselves and internalizing that there is nothing that we have in life on our own. It all comes from Hashem. We are not worthy of it. It's all from his kindness. That is what davening is meant to do. That's what prayer is meant for. That's what blessings are meant for. That's what Shabbos is meant for. Hashem created the world. It's his world. And it's he who supplies us with everything that we need. So clearly, every day we're spending lots of time trying not to just expect that things should work out the way you want it to. But we're constantly reminding ourselves that everything comes to us from Hashem. At the same time, it's not easy, because when everything is going well, it is difficult to see things as, well, maybe it shouldn't be this way. It's the way we are as human beings. When things are going well, it's a challenge not to just expect that this is the way things should be or will remain. So there's another approach that we can use to deal with this. On Pesach, by the Pesach Seder, we say towards the end of the Magid section of the Haggadah, Rabbi Gamliel said, whoever does not say or discuss the following three mitzvahs has not fulfilled his obligation of the Pesach Seder. And they are Pesach, Matzah, Umar. We talk about the carbon Pesach, the Paschal sacrifice. We talk about the Matzah, and we talk about Mar. The Paschal sacrifice is to remember how Hashem skipped over the Jewish homes when he smote the firstborn. Matzah is about remembering how we were rushed out of Egypt before the dough had a chance to rise. And Mar is to remember the bitterness of the slavery. The question that's asked is, why is the order Pesach, Matzah, and Mar? Chronologically, it was the other way around. First came what Mar represented, the bitterness of the slavery. Then came what Pesach represented, the smiting of the firstborn. And then Matzah came what represented our leaving Egypt. Why do we go in the order of Pesach, Matzah, and Mar when it should be Mar, Pesach, Matzah? So the answer that I saw as to why we have Mar at the end is because we're trying to make a point, and that is that don't just look as Mar as what happened before we were redeemed. And that's the only, we just look at Mara as what was before. But even after you are celebrating Pesach, Matzah, you have to constantly remember Mara. Mara is not just to be remembered as the means for redemption. Mara should be remembered on its own. Remember Mara. Contemplate Mara. Even after you've been freed and you're celebrating your freedom, remember Mara. And not just as what preceded our freedom. Remember it. Contemplate the bitterness. Why? Because when you contemplate the bitterness, you will not take the freedom you have for granted. If you constantly remember the bad times, the times that were very uncomfortable, that is when you can appreciate what you have. Which means that we can take our difficult times, our times of distress, our times of tsar, and actually use them to develop our appreciation and gratitude to Hashem. Because when we remember when things weren't going well, that means we can't take what happens in life for granted. And then we appreciate more what we have and feel our gratitude to Hashem for that. So when you remember any time, the rough times, the difficult times, and how you've been delivered from those difficult times, you remember those difficult times so that you appreciate what you have. The truth is, we are now going through a pandemic that's almost a year old. And if there's anything that we continue to experience on a day-to-day basis to remind us not to take life for granted and not to take what we have for granted, it's this pandemic. It is a constant reminder for us that life we can't, there are no guarantees, there are no expectations. There are no guarantees that you'll be able to visit your family and share a simcha with your family and with your friends. There's no guarantee. That's what COVID-19 has shown us, shown the world. And hopefully, as many people have expressed, this experience of the pandemic is going to give them an appreciation for when things get back to normal. They're going to appreciate things. They're going to appreciate it more. They're going to take it for granted. They've been through a long time of being reminded that you can't take anything for granted. You can't expect anything in life. So this pandemic, what we go through right now, is going to be something that reminds us not to take things for granted, and that it will be something to remember so we won't take things for granted. But at another level, when we are experiencing a difficulty, it also gives us a chance to show our gratitude to Hashem for what he gave us in the past. Mitzvah Hashem, this pandemic is going to end. We'll be able to look at it, in the rearview mirror. But there are sometimes you go through difficulties and it's not going to come back. It's not going to come back. But we have a chance to, again, use our hard times, the times that we find difficult, and actually look back at what was before and appreciate what we had. Color Greater Boston recently shared with me the following thought. The Medrash says that the first person to become old was Abraham, and he requested it. He requested it because, basically, that's what he requested. He requested that before he passes on, he should get old, which means there was a point of time that people just stayed regular, and then when the time was up, they went. Avraham Avinu asked that he become old, that there should actually be a period that he realizes that you don't stay young forever and your time will end. And there could be more than one reason why Avraham asked for that. But Rabbi Meir pointed out, and that he has shared this with an elderly person, that when a person gets older, and they lose their strength, their youthful kaichas, their youth, their strength, it really becomes a chance for them to appreciate what they had. If you stay young forever, then again, your life and your strength, what you can do is it's a given. You just get used to it. You expect it. But when it goes away, we can look at it in two ways. We can bemoan our fate, or we can actually look at it as a chance to appreciate what we had. This is something that can happen, that we should try to do when we experience a loss. When we experience the loss of a loved one, they're not coming back. But it's a chance for us to really appreciate what we had. We're always reminded, appreciate your father, appreciate your mother, appreciate your friend, appreciate everyone. But we all think that we're just going to have them forever. And hopefully over our lifetime, we mature, get a little smarter, and express and feel our appreciation to our parents, to our loved ones. But there comes a point of time where, we lose them. And of course, then we realize we didn't appreciate them enough. But again, when we have something, there is always a challenge to appreciate it. When we don't have something, it becomes easier. It's kind of hard to think out of that pain. But it really now is an opportunity to look back at what we had in the past and to thank Hashem for it. And to thank Hashem for a father that we had. And to really appreciate what they did for us. All the love and care that they showed to us as a parent, as a grandparent. A loss is something that can actually be a means. When we've lost something, we don't have it anymore, and we feel the pain of that, to actually use that pain to look back and to thank Hashem for the wonderful gift that we had. And when we do that, when we can take a loss and use it to appreciate what Hashem gave us, that will be a great, great merit for the loved one that has left us. May we all be given the strength to whatever difficulty we go through or have gone through, to use them as an opportunity to not take things for granted and to use them to express our gratitude to Hashem. Wish you all a wonderful Shabbos.